What's it like to party with him?
Partying is weakness for the soul, my friend, so I try and avoid it.
Partying is weakness for the soul.
If I was not busy with everything at my disposal, that could potentially be dangerous, you know? That could be catastrophic. I could run into a wall.
All right, so it's been over 3 years since Conor McGregor last fought in the UFC, and since then we've seen more footage of him partying than training. So a lot of people doubt that he's really committed and motivated enough to return to the UFC and compete at a high level. Like, the only fight we've seen him in recently was against the Miami Heat mascot. That's all we really have to go off of. But he looked pretty good. You know, he sent the guy to the hospital after only 2 shots. So I think he's still got it. And it seems like he's still definitely the best at trash talking. You know, he's still got that down. And he's not afraid to call out anybody. I mean, he's calling out some high-level fighters like Hezbollah. He said he wanted a sparring session with him, but he was too afraid to tag him. He said, "Let me spar Hezbollah, UFC, big gloves, a friendly affair, I swear." And then he also said he's going to make it his mission to score a 3-pointer with Hezbollah one day. And he also said, "I'd love to boot that little gimp Hezbollah over a goalpost." So Conor was talking a lot of shit and sounded confident, but I think it got a little too real for him because he deleted the tweets and Hezbollah responded and said, "If I meet him, I will cause some problems for him." So I think he got a little too carried away on one of his benders and started going off on Hezbollah. And then when he sobered up, he realized he didn't want any of that smoke. But, you know, it's good to see he's still excited about fighting, even if it's against a Dorf or the Heat mascot. At least that drive is still there. But now he just needs to take a break from the partying a little bit. I mean, it seems like pretty much every week now, there's a new video of him drunk or coked out of his mind partying, which is kind of funny and sad at the same time. I mean, it looks like he's just out of control, but also he's still a great entertainer.
Like Sturgis, South Dakota, Ferrari Week, baby!
What's more badass than bare knuckle and American rock and roll? Nothing, baby, that's what.
KFC 63 at the Sturgis Buffalo Chip in Sturgis, South Dakota.
One of the most... Stand your base. Stand your base. The space is your space, yeah? Go ahead, carry on. There's no one doing it like me. Nobody. I make more dough than a bakery, I do, yeah? Get me out of this table, you man. Then you can't tell me nothing, right? Connor, take the glasses off. For sure, no problem. Might put down 12 cans on this stream. Cuba!
So at this point, I don't know if he's more committed to fighting or partying. I mean, he was out partying a month away from his fight with Michael Chandler, which he eventually pulled out of because he had a broken toe. But people are speculating is really because he needed to go to rehab. Either way, though, he looked like he's in bad shape. Like just 3 months before the fight, he was tweaking out during an interview he was doing for his new Roadhouse movie.
You know, I'm blessed to have entered into the movie alongside him. He was patient with me. He gave me guidance, and I just took it. You know, we had a good rapport on set. He has 75 movies made. I have 75 bar fights made. And that's it. We had a good...
The Daily Texan. What can you tell us about your acting debut? Obviously, it's your first experience.
Hard work, but, you know, we got it done. It's in the bank for life. You know, you put something in the bank, maybe it's not going to be there for life. You might spend it. This baby is in there for life, and I'm ecstatic about that.
So after all the videos of him drinking and partying and just looking like he's coked out, people weren't very confident in the fight happening, and it definitely seems like Conor isn't as committed to fighting as he used to be. And I think the beginning of the end for him was probably after the Mayweather fight, because that was by far his biggest payday. He made 4 to 6 times his total career UFC earnings in that one fight, and his popularity was through the roof. So I think after that, he started to take his foot off the gas a little bit and was more focused on just trying to capitalize on his popularity. because the next year, only a month before his fight with Khabib, he launched Proper 12. So he was cashing in and crashing out because he made a ton of money from that. It was a very good financial decision, but it's hard to stay focused and motivated when you're making that kind of money. And when you're promoting alcohol, when you're prone to alcoholism, that could be a disaster. And Conor said leading up to the Khabib fight, he started partying harder than he ever had during his career.
I was drinking on Bleeding Fight Week last one, I think. I was on the Conan O'Brien show. Yes. Listen, I'm 2 days away from the biggest fight of my life, so I'll only drink half the bottle.
You were drinking in the build-up.
Yeah.
Was that common for you in your career?
Not to that extent, no. Not to that extent.
Why'd you do that?
Don't know. I had just venom in me or something. Don't know why. I had people holed up in a hotel.
So leading up to that fight, it sounded like his drinking might have been a little out of control, and he started to lose focus. You know, I think he cared more about just promoting his alcohol and being a businessman over being a fighter.
You know,
it's Shane the Bush's birthday.
I'm not underestimating.
Here's a goggle for you, Dana. Proper 12.
I'm not
Proper 12 on me. Hang joy.
And when
Here,
I go to the
hang
cage,
joy. Just let me give him. It's his birthday.
I'm gonna go like
yeah, Shane
my
the Bush.
last fight.
Happy birthday,
Like,
Shane the Bush.
I don't drink.
Why don't you drink?
I don't drink.
Why don't you drink?
I never drink.
I'd say some buzz at parties.
I never drink.
You're mad backwards. You're
never
dead when I get my hands on you. Do you hear me?
I never
You're
drink.
fucking dead.
I never drink.
I'll drink it. Me and the Irish Boston animal, Dana White, the OG of the fight game. He'll sup this bad boy.
I think it's gonna be a long night for him.
Ah, yes.
He
Oh,
knows
Lord, save me. That's
He knows
tasty.
this. He knows this.
Yeah, and he does not like when people turn down his whiskey. Like a year after this, he punched some older guy at a bar who refused to drink it. So he's completely out of control, and the money and the fame has definitely gone to his head. I mean, he's just doing whatever the hell he wants. Like, also, looks like he's cheating on his wife all the time, which obviously isn't very surprising. I mean, most famous athletes do that, but usually they try their best to keep it private. But with Conor, it seems like he just can't help himself, and he doesn't care how public it is. You know, after his big KO victory over the Heat mascot, there's a video of him bringing a girl to the bathroom during like an after party at a bar or something, and she ended up accusing him of taking advantage of her, but the case was dropped. Either way, though, it's got to be embarrassing for his wife, especially with what happened recently. Like, Conor was with her at some fighting event, and I guess he forgot she was there, and there's this girl in front of him dancing, and he started pulling on her hair and tried dancing with her, but then I guess he remembered his wife was behind him, so he turns around and tries to laugh it off and pulls on her hair a little bit. So he's just living in his own world, and I don't know if he cares enough to really get back to being a high-level fighter. Like, it's hard to imagine he's that motivated. He already has all the money, the legacy, you know, he accomplished everything he wanted to, so I think he just cares more about enjoying himself now, which apparently Joe Rogan loves to see. It's funny, because he sounds like he doesn't care if Conor were to fight again, and he likes that he's out having fun. Like, Rogan was talking about this with Cameron Haynes last year, and Cameron was like, man, it's hard to see him out partying every night and wasting his talent. But Joe's like, oh, let him enjoy life. He deserves everything he has.
And then I also want Conor, because I want Conor to stop partying and fucking get serious.
Well, it's hard, because why do you become famous in the first place? Why do you become successful in the first place? So you can live like a fucking baller.
Yeah, but
and that's what Conor's doing.
But you can do
Did
that
you see
shit
he
when
pulled
you're
his
old.
Yacht up to the fucking Formula One.
Yeah.
So he's watching the Formula One while he's eating
I
breakfast
know.
off the back of his yacht.
It looks great, but
fuck yeah, it does.
But I mean, you got a shitload of money. You don't do that.
I'm a different person than Conor McGregor.
I know, but
I have different motivations.
But he's in his, I'm not quite in his prime, maybe a little older, but he's got so much talent, so much ability. You can party and be a fucking madman.
Or you could be jacked in your yacht, which is what you want.
Yeah, but when you're 40 and you got no other choice, do it then.
Well, but you can do it now, and that's what he wants to do. The problem
I
is,
fucking
it's like,
hate it though.
The problem is like
I'm sick of seeing pictures of him partying.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. I want to see him in the gym.
I want him to do what he wants to do. And if Conor McGregor wants to fucking buy diamonds and lay around in the sun, I'm all there for it. The guy earned every fucking penny he got. I'm happy for him.
But also, I think Joe's kind of in denial about how bad the partying and drinking and doing coke has really gotten for Conor. because he's talking about the clip of Conor partying a month out from his Chandler fight, where he's at a club with his wife and he's shirtless and he's jumping around. And Joe's like, you know, he might not be drinking there. He could just be really enthusiastic.
Did you see him partying like a night or two ago?
You reckon real?
I mean, it doesn't mean he's drinking.
He's vibing. He's
with his wife. He's got his shirt off. Looks like he's having a good time. I mean, it looked like he wasn't sober, but he could just be a fucking maniac. And he's kissing his wife. He's throwing. He took his shirt off. He's getting crazy. But I mean, he could just be enthusiastic. It doesn't.
I don't know.
It looks a little fucked up.
Listen, I saw a Roadhouse. Yeah, not a good actor. You know?
And some fighters can get away with partying leading up to fights and still have great performances, like John Jones and Ryan Garcia. So maybe Conor could pull it off, but, you know, he's pretty out of control and he's getting older. He had that bad leg injury and he just doesn't seem to be that motivated, but maybe he's able to flip a switch and is able to get back on track. It's not looking promising, though, but it would make for a great redemption story. Let me know what you guys think, and then make sure you check out my Patreon account if you enjoyed this video. I have a ton of content up there, over 100 exclusive videos. You can hear about the time Brendan Schaub accidentally exposed Joe Rogan, or some of the cringiest Joe Rogan Experience episodes, or the time Tim Dillon humbled Whitney Cummings. There's a ton of good stuff up there. If you like the channel, make sure you check it out. I'll put a link in the description. All right, so we have Bert Kreischer reacting to a diss track that was made about him called 2 Bears, 1 Grave by Crack Amico, which if you haven't heard it yet, make sure you check it out after this video. I highly recommend it. You know, if you follow this stuff, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'll put a link in the description. But already the song has been doing really well, and it's gotten a lot of attention, especially from comedians, you know, like Louis J. Gomez. He played it on his show right when it dropped, and then also on Legion of Skanks, they had Bert call in, and they told him to go listen to it and then react to it. And you could tell he was definitely shook by it, but I'll at least give him some credit here for actually listening to it and responding. You know, I think that was probably better than just trying to ignore it. And he also made Crack Amico an offer, which you could tell Bert's just trying to get him on his side. You know, he said he could come perform on his next tour if he writes a positive song about him. But we'll get more into that later on. First, I wanted to play Lewis and Mark Normand initially reacting to it. And you could tell Mark was kind of uncomfortable watching it, but Lewis thought it was hilarious. Because also, I think he's the one that discovered Crack Amico and gave him the name. But Lewis also mentions Red Bar and how comedians should be able to have thicker skin when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I think he also says right here that Tony Hinchcliffe and Joe Rogan have listened to one of Crack Amico's songs, the one called LA is Gay, which is mostly about Brendan Schaub. So there's actually a chance Rogan listens to 2 Bears, 1 Grave, which would be hilarious.
I never thought I'd see the day where someone spent that much time shitting on comedians.
It's the research he does.
Yeah.
I find really impressive.
And here's the thing. This is what I'll say. You know, this is what I said about Red Bar, right? Because Red Bar's taking some shots. You know, if you are good at what you do, it's fucking commendable and it's respectable. And even if you don't agree with the message, like I love Bert and Tom, they're fucking great.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think we can fucking get made fun of sometimes.
You got to take a beating sometimes.
You got to take a beating sometimes. That's just the way it is.
Nobody's
you know,
perfect.
and you can't be sensitive about it. And that's just the truth. I take a beating more than anybody in the world.
Either of them ever hear it?
They will hear that.
Really?
Unquestionably,
I think
they'll hear
people
it.
start tagging him in.
I know they'll hear. I know that fucking when they did the LA is Gay song, I know that Tony and Rogan listened to it together.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So they hear it, dude. Nobody's above Googling themselves.
Yeah.
That's just what we are. We're
And
pieces of shit.
It's kind of the price you pay for comedy. We're like a huge boom. It's insanely
Let me
popular.
make this
and
very
is what
clear.
happens when shit's
If
popular.
that bothered Bert, and it wouldn't. Bert literally would dry his tears with the amount of money he makes touring. It doesn't matter. That is the least of anybody's concerns is somebody saying some mean jokes, or it should be at the very least, right?
Yeah, and also comedians have spent the past 7 or 8 years talking about how people are too sensitive and they need to have thicker skin. And if you get offended by something they have to say or a joke they make, then you need to just get over yourself. It's not that serious. So it's kind of hypocritical if they get all upset and offended by some criticism or a joke made at their expense. And I think Lewis definitely realizes that, and some other comedians. Like recently, this was pretty shocking, and I'm sure Andrew Santino's not going to be happy about this, but Bobby Lee and Whitney Cummings were talking about Red Bar, and Bobby said that it's good to have people putting comedians in check, and he said there's something important about Red Bar.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, we've had it good.
Yeah.
From East Coast to West Coast.
Yeah.
The system that we have. And I just think that when something's successful,
Yeah.
people need to put us in check.
I think I agree, and I think that yeah, it's like when someone's like, "Oh, Red Bar said something mean about you," I'm like, me, like I'm in the rotation in some way. Like you don't get to.
Did you hear this?
I think
do.
that he's.
I think so.
I mean, there's something important about him.
What the?
And they both said they follow Red Bar, so it's pretty crazy. It seems like a good amount of comedians are keeping up with this stuff. But now into Bert's reaction to Two Bears, One Grave. I'm just going to start it once Bert calls back in after he watched the video. And again, I'll give him credit just for watching it and reacting to it. But of course, he has like the default response right away. You know, the same kind of response that Mark and that girl had on Lewis's podcast. Like, man, he really did his research. He knows a lot about me. But it's funny because it's like Bert forgets he does probably 5 hours of podcasts a week and puts all this information out there. And it only takes like 30 minutes of listening to Bert to get a good idea of what he's like. I mean, for the longest time, I only knew him from doing Rogan's podcast. And just with his appearances on there, I knew he had the most annoying laugh ever. I knew he loved to talk about himself. He loved to interrupt. And he's an alcoholic that's in denial. And he's delusional about how athletic he is and the kind of shape he's in. I mean, it doesn't take very long to pick that stuff up. And then if you're doing like 5 hours of podcasts a week and you're talking about your personal life a lot, people are going to have a lot of information on you.
Oh, I'm so glad you sent that to me.
First takes.
That guy really has done his research.
He's a fan. That's my point. He's a fan. He's a fan of all of
He knows
them.
more about me than my fucking wife. Holy shit. Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't shit on his flow and everything, and I mean, he's got his shit together. I have a couple things I hold umbrage with. but-
Okay. That's what we want to know. Definitely what we want to know. Can you put a picture of Fat Bird up on the screen?
I take umbrage.
What's the umbrage?
Well, you know, the things that hurt are the deep cuts where he goes, where it's accurate, and he's like, you lost all this weight, but you still have alcoholic's face. I'm like,
It's all stuff your father said.
when he's like, you've never had to struggle, you came from a rich father, I was like, God damn it, I didn't know anyone knew that.
I didn't know that.
No, my dad wasn't rich, but you know, it's like, obviously, I mean, I don't think Crackamico probably knew his dad, it sounds like.
Shots fired.
I'm just saying, like.
Yeah, and Bert started firing back. But it's funny he's all surprised that people know he grew up rich. I mean, maybe that's something that people researched and figured out, but I'd imagine he's probably talked about it quite a few times on his podcast, or at least hinted towards it, or told childhood stories where you could tell he had some money or something like that. I mean, this comment says he's talked about it a million times. And then also this person said, nobody goes to Florida State for 7 years without a trust fund. You'd tell Bert comes from money. And then somebody commented on that and said, too bad he didn't come from comedy. And you know, that's another thing. People's comments are funnier than some of the comedians at this point. You know, like if you go to Bert's and Tom's comment section, there's sometimes some really funny stuff. Because this shit basically writes itself at this point. You know, like Tom having that meltdown at the airport because he had a check in a bag, and then going on a podcast to talk about stoicism right afterwards is the funniest thing ever. And obviously, all the comments are going to be clowning on him. So also, like I said in the beginning, Bert actually offered Crackamico an opportunity to come out and freestyle on his tour under the condition that he makes a positive song about Bert.
I'll tell you what, if Crackamico wants to freestyle on Fully Loaded, I'll bring him out.
Whoa! What? I meant only pain, and now there's happiness?
Let me tell you something.
I'll set that up.
The audience would go fucking nuts. By the way, Crackamico, come hang out with me and Dan Soder on tour. Write a positive Bert Kreischer song.
Bert's the man. I told him I was like, Bert is hilarious and is gonna think it's funny. It's gonna hurt his feelings a little bit.
Yeah,
but he's gonna get it.
It's not good if it didn't hurt my feelings. Like,
Yeah.
for real. Like, it's not good if he doesn't say something where I'm like, God damn it.
Crackamico's performed in the last two Skankfest, dude. They love him. He has a bunch of songs.
I love a deep dive into what things you say on a podcast turn him, where he starts hating you. I would love a deep dive on that.
Oh, yeah. No, without a doubt.
Because it's fascinating. thing because you always just kind of.
Come on, he's getting.
Oh. Yeah, and obviously, like Bert said, he kind of made that offer to try to get Crack Amico to bend the knee, because offering him to perform at an arena is pretty wild. Like, that's hard to turn down. So it does put Crack Amico in an interesting spot. I saw he did actually respond to this. And first of all, he didn't really believe it, which I don't either. And then also he said he wouldn't make a positive Bert song. Like, if he actually wants to fly him out and have him perform, he's going to perform Two Bears, One Grave, which I think is probably a safe move. I don't think that's bending the knee. And I think people would want to see that. And if you guys want to make that happen, make sure you remind Bert about this. Let him know that he made this offer and Crack Amico responded. And now the ball's in his court. If he actually wants to go through with this, he has to let him do Two Bears, One Grave. And, I think this would be a good opportunity for Bert to show that he has a good sense of humor and he can laugh at himself and he doesn't take himself too seriously. And also at the end of that clip, before Ari hung up on Bert, it sounded like he was trying to ask if Crack Amico could explain to him why he's turned on him, like what he said that caused him and the fans to turn on him, which is kind of funny because there are probably around 1,000 videos on YouTube that could explain it to him. But Bert's probably just gotten so used to writing that stuff off and the comments off as people just being haters or people being jealous. And, hanging around Segura and Rogan probably doesn't help with that either because they always talk about how those people are losers or pores. And it's funny because it sounds like Bert understands why people have turned on Tom. Like he says he reads Tom's comments and maybe watches videos about him. And when he talked about it, he's like, yeah, Two Bears, One Cave, it kind of fell off once Tom got disconnected from the fans.
We peaked at around episode 30.
That happened with Two Bears. We used to be good during the pandemic when Tom was fat, and then Tom lost weight and got disconnected from our fans.
Yeah.
It's just fucking,
now calls them the pores.
Yeah. Calls them the pores. He does call them the pores.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with all this. And again, make sure you guys go check out Two Bears, One Grave if you haven't heard it yet. I highly recommend it. And then also, if you want more content from me, make sure you go check out my Patreon account. I just posted a new video about how there might be some problems between Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Then hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video. All right, so recently Bobby Lee was on Bert Kreischer's podcast, and I'd say this was actually a good podcast for Bert because talking to somebody like Bobby is something he needs. These two are like complete opposites, and I think it benefits Bert to be around somebody that doesn't take themselves too seriously because Bert, I'm sure he already had a big ego, but then being around Tom Segura and Joe Rogan and doing arena tours, that definitely inflated it a lot. And that's what leads to him talking about how a comedian's brain is so much different than a pedestrian's. I'm pretty sure he got that from Rogan. I know I've heard him say that a bunch of times, but thankfully we have people like Stavros or Bobby Lee who will either laugh in his face when he says something like that or at least call him out on it, which needs to happen more often because as a society, we should have never gotten to the point where we let Bert Kreischer believe he's an artist. But here we are. Last episode with Bobby Lee, he brought up how they're artists, and Bobby's like, wait, what do you mean by that? And Bert's response is basically like, we're not pedestrians. He says, we're different. We could never work a 9 to 5. It's just some shit he's heard Joe Rogan say, I'm sure. And I don't know why Bert would even care to argue this because you're always going to sound pretentious. I'm sure a lot of people think comedians are artists, but hearing a comedian, especially Bert Kreischer, try to argue that just does not go well.
She understands what makes us tick. She understands that we're artists and that we're a little complicated.
When you say artists, what do you mean?
Like we're different people. Like we wouldn't work in a 9
Yeah,
to
but
5.
what I'm saying is that because people call me an artist, and in my mind I'm like, is it art?
What you do? Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is podcasting an art? I don't think it is.
Oh, I think it is.
Even if you agree with him and you think podcasting is art and Bert Kreischer is an artist, hearing him call himself one is cringy. And thankfully, Bobby questioned it because hearing him explain it is even cringier. There's no need for Bert Kreischer to be referring to himself as an artist. Because also, he's not somebody that should be taking themselves that seriously. And that's why it's good for him to talk to Bobby once in a while. I'm sure being around Tom and Joe, like I said, that's not making things any better. So being around Bobby, I think is good for him because Bobby doesn't seem to care as much and he's not going to try to act like their jobs are insanely important. And it's funny seeing Bert talk to a comedian who's like the complete opposite of him. Bobby has no motivation to do a comedy special or ever perform at an arena. And Bert Bert is so confused by it. He's like, man, I could never be you because you're everybody's favorite comedian, but you've never done a special. And Bobby's like, why would I do one? And I don't know if Bert just doesn't have an answer, but he sits there for a second or two and he's probably just thinking, well, you know, because every other comedian does it.
You're everyone's favorite comic and you've never done a special.
So?
I know, but don't you want to do specials?
No.
Why not?
Why? Number one, I don't want to do stadiums. You know,
you don't enjoy it?
No. I like clubs.
Yeah, so these two have completely different mindsets. You know, everything Bert does has to be the biggest event possible, and he has to take advantage of every opportunity, and he works nonstop. But Bobby, on the other hand, he's the exact opposite. Like, he's fine just doing his own thing, going at his own pace, and he's not motivated to try to do anything crazy. And it sounds like he kind of credits his success, or at least his longevity in his career, to that.
So I think the reason why I've had such a longevity, I think, is because I've just sort of like stayed at one level.
And I think there is some truth to that. And Bert could learn from this a little bit because he tries to go all out. You know, he does as much as possible. And eventually you just can't keep up with it. He's going to get burnt out. And he always says that's his family's biggest worry, even over his drinking. He says they're just concerned about him overworking himself. And, you know, I think him doing everything he possibly can and working 24/7 doesn't really help his career in the long term, you know, because he's just focusing on too much. Like, he does a whole arena tour, and then he does that cruise. He has multiple different podcasts, and he does Two Bears, One Cave, where he has to go to Austin to film it. And he's just all over the place. You know, you could be watching some random event, like that golfing thing, and then all of a sudden he'll run out of nowhere and tackle a protester. Like, the guy's everywhere. You know, I think he probably accepts every offer he gets. And then there's a lot of pressure because there's a lot of people relying on you. Like with his arena tour, I'm sure there's a ton of employees and comics and everything. And even with his podcast, recently when Bobby's on Joe Rogan's podcast, they're both talking about how many people Bert and Tom have working for them. And they're like, yeah, that is way too much. We do not need that in our lives. You know, Joe, he could hire a ton of employees if he wanted to that I'm sure could help out, but he realizes it's just not worth it. You know, he has Jamie and then I think one other guy to help him book guests, and that's all he needs. But Bert Kreischer, on the other hand, he has 8 employees working for his podcast.
Have you been to Tom's?
Tom? Oh, yeah.
It's like they have a real production staff.
Yeah.
There's all these people running around with clipboards, and it's like...
I went to Bert's house the other day. He had 8 people behind computers, just typing away. What the fuck they're doing? Emailing what?
Social media, going crazy, promoting arena shows. Everyone's going nuts.
Me, no.
I don't want that in my life.
Why would you don't need it?
I don't want it.
You have a white guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bert, he does not need 8 employees. Bobby says he doesn't know what they're doing. I don't think Bert does either. And now there's all this pressure on him since there's all these people relying on him, and it's just not sustainable. So Bobby's saying that it's good. He just kind of stays in the same spot his whole career. There's definitely something to that. You know, Bert, he reached the top. He's selling out arenas, but he's not going to have the kind of longevity that Bobby's had throughout his career. But I think Bert's mentality is just, you know, it's not going to last forever, so I want to take advantage of it while I can. You know, I'm going to try to do as much as possible. And he obviously likes doing massive shows and arenas and everything, so it's good he got to do that. But I think in terms of longevity, it probably wasn't the best for his career, especially because he became way more successful than he should have. You know, he shouldn't really be selling out arenas. And he just tries to do way too much. You know, having 3 podcasts and all these people running social media, it's just not really necessary. And I don't think it helps much, like Joe and Bobby are saying. And, you know, most podcasters, the ones that are doing the best right now, the comedians, Theo Vaughn, Tim Dillon, Matt and Shane, like Joe Rogan, these people, they just have 1 podcast and maybe 1 or 2 producers. And that seems like a smart move because somebody like Bert, now there's all this pressure on him with all the overhead and all these people working for him in this giant production. And then if the views go down, it hits a lot harder. So also during this podcast, when Bobby mentioned how he's never been that motivated and he's always just done his own thing and it's worked out for him, Bert is like, well, yeah, it's because you're just really talented. And Bobby's like, no, that's not it. He's like, it's just because I've never given up. You know, I've always just stayed with it. And I think he's kind of trying to be humble here, but I think it's good for Bert to be around somebody who's like, you know, it's not all just being motivated and being the most talented. And it's funny because Bert's like, well, you must have some drive because you do big things. You know, you have a really successful podcast, Bad Friends. Then you have that other one and you can't think of the name of it. And then you can't think of Kalila's name either. which I don't blame him for forgetting her, but it's just funny that he's trying to name the big things that Bobby's doing, and he can't even name 2 things. And they don't even require that much work. I mean, I know Bad Friends is insanely successful, but it's just a podcast. I mean, it's just Bobby talking to his friend once a week for like an hour and a half. That's not that crazy, and that's still a lot for Bobby. You know, he'll show up late to it. But it's funny people act like just because you're successful at something, it means you have to be really talented and you put all this time and effort into it. But sometimes it's not always like that, especially with podcasting. You know, obviously there's some people that put a lot of work into it and have to research a lot and everything. But most of them, it's like you just show up, talking to a mic, try to be funny and entertaining, and that's about it. You know, Bobby just happens to have a good personality for a podcast. And it helps that he has self-awareness and doesn't take himself too seriously compared to some of these other comedians especially. You know, it's good he doesn't try to act like he's doing something special or doing something really important or he's an artist, you know, because comedians obviously get carried away with that shit.
It's been like this, and it's all pretty much have worked out for me.
It has. Well, it's because you're incredibly talented.
That's not why.
Bullshit.
No.
You're just amazingly talented. Like, you have to have some sort of drive in you because you do big things. You have Bad Friends, one of the biggest podcasts. The one you have with, do you still do it with, what's her name?
You've done it 3 times. You should know the name.
Give me a
It's
second.
so rude, dude.
Hold on.
It's,
Tiger Belly. Tiger Belly.
What's her name, though? I know Leanne. The K.
I know it starts with a K.
All right.
I want to say it's
K-H.
Kai.
Right. Her name is Kalila.
I know it's Kalila.
Yeah, so Bert's starting to redeem himself here, you know, forgetting Kalila's name. That's pretty funny. But also during this podcast, Bobby, right in the beginning, he mentions how much Bert is working. He's like, man, it must be so hectic. You're doing so much stuff. And Bert starts breaking down his schedule, and Bobby's like, yeah, I do none of that. And Bert's like, well, why not? And he's like, well, why do you want to do all that? And Bert says he feels like he's just leaving stuff on the table if he doesn't. And Bobby's response to it, you could tell it hits Bert hard, and he's like, whoa, what did he just say? And he probably doesn't know if it's an insult or not. Like, also you could hear people laughing in the background, but I think Bobby's just being honest and giving him good advice.
You're stressing me out. Every time I see you, you stress me out. You could get 3 shows, and then also I know you have other things to do.
My day is packed. It starts at like 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, in conference calls.
I don't do any of that.
Why?
Why? That's why don't you ask yourself that? Why do you do it?
Because I feel like I'm leaving stuff on the table.
Yeah, but you know what? Nothing that you achieve is going to fix you. It doesn't.
For real?
Yeah.
So like I said in the beginning, I think this is probably a good podcast for Bert. This is some stuff he needed to hear, and it sounded like that resonated with him, which is good because I'd say his career has probably reached its peak already, which isn't terrible, but when you're like Bert and you're always trying to get to the next thing, you're always trying to do as much as possible and put on the biggest shows possible, I think you need to start getting better at just being content with where you're at and what you have and just focusing on certain things. You know, I think that would definitely help him. So we'll see if Bobby actually got through to him at all. But that's about it for this video. Make sure you guys go check out my Patreon account. I just posted a new video over there about the Hans Kim and Rick Diaz beef. And also I talked about another clip from this podcast where Bobby called out Bert for something. And there's a ton of other stuff, over 60 videos. You can also hear about, you know, Kramer, Michael Richards' infamous meltdown at the Laugh Factory. So I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out. There's a lot of stuff to go through. And then hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video.